Hello. Right, well, this is the first Bamford Rose live stream. I'm sure we're going to have a ton of technical problems. Now, this is being filmed on a MacBook. Now, me and MacBooks do not go together at all. I cannot press a key on a MacBook and it function at all. I use Apple for phones, Windows for computers. So me using a MacBook is a recipe for disaster. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to give a little bit of an intro. Some commentary on the Bamford Rose social media that I wanted to give. And then I've got some sent in questions to go through, and I'll just talk through those and give the answer. So if you can put your comments, your questions in the comments section, then our team will sort of summarize those. And after I've been through the questions that were sent in, I'll run through the questions that you put in the comments section now. Now I can see a couple of people have already put some questions on the comments section, but if we get some more update, I'm probably going to lose those ones. So feel free to put your comments in. As we get started and I run through my commentary of the few things that I wanted to say, it'd be really good if you can put in the comments section if you own an Aston already, what you've got, where you're from, where you drive it, or if you're not a current owner, some reasons why you want to dip your toe into Aston ownership. That'd be a fun way to break the ice instead of me talking about all the things that I want to talk about all the time. So one of the things that I wanted to mention is there's been quite a lot of comments in a lot of videos that I do on YouTube about how it's all pretty negative and it's just problems with Astons, and I own an Aston. Oh, this is someone commenting, not me. I own an Aston, and every time I turn the key off and walk away from it, I have to look back and admire it. Yeah, great. I own an Aston, and I do the same. There's a few really beautiful Astons always in the workshop, and as I turn the lights off, I look at those and admire them. B12 Cigato. I spend a lot of time looking at that one, and when it does leave our workshop eventually, that is going to be one ornament that will be very sad to see the back of. But if you look on our Facebook pages, then this is the love-in of Aston Martin. We picture Astons at every angle, say how beautiful they are, and on Facebook and Instagram, that's the Bamford Rose Aston love-in area. If you look at YouTube, well, it's going to be doing videos about navigating through ownership. Now, if you look at, say, 10 transactions that I'll do in the office, we've probably got one that is an upgrade. So the car came in working perfectly, and it's going to have an upgrade with us, and it's going to drive away better for it. And often when someone drives away after having an upgrade, I'll get a text message when they get home, oh, that drive was brilliant, really like that, it's really, really good. And that's a positive side of a transaction with our business. Now, I consider servicing a positive transaction because this is the time to look after a car, pamper a car, and petrol heads want to throw fluids, filters, and workshop technician time at a car during service. So that's really, really positive experience. So if we're talking about 10 transactions, this is just sort of a finger in the air sort of analysis. One being positive because it's an upgrade. And then let's just say of those 10, we've got 5 or 6 that were serviced. We're left with sort of half of what we do being a straight and outright repair. And someone's going to drive away in the same car that they drove in with, but it's just going to be repaired. So it's sort of a negative experience because, especially if that repair bill was big, you'd have been better off, more happier spending all that money on an upgrade instead of a repair. So if you look at the videos that we do on YouTube, it is going to be about the warts and all side of it. I said earlier that the Facebook was the love-in side of Bamford Rose and Astons, then YouTube is going to be warts and all. Now, just this week, my own workhorse vehicle, a Mitsubishi Shogun, had a very untimely demise, and it went to see the car maker in the sky. So I have to find another workhorse. Now, the wise person would buy another Mitsubishi Shogun because they never break. It doesn't matter what you do to them, they keep going on and on and on. But they're a bit boring, a bit uncomfortable, make loud noises, and you'll get more toys and more refinement in a Land Rover. Now, I used to work for Land Rover. I really like a Discovery sort of landmark. You know, this was the Discovery 4 before they changed the shape awfully. Anyway, like the Discovery Land Rover 4. And they finished those in about 2016, 17, something like that, I think. But Land Rover come with a heap of problems. Electronic park brake's going to stick on, EGR valve's going to fail, DPF filter's going to clog up, the front and rear diff is going to seize up, and the gearbox is going to go wrong. You know, these are all known problems, and you have to sort of understand what ownership of those cars is like, so you can navigate your way through ownership. Now, a while back, any of my customers had the privilege of me taking them to the train station. A few years ago, I had a Mark I Ford Expedition imported from the States, big square section, old school looking truck. And, you know, it had been lifted. It was on big 4x4 knobbly tires. If there was ever a zombie apocalypse, then this is the car that you'd want. It was a brute of a car, straight through pipes on it. Sounded absolutely gorgeous. Now, if you're from America, you will know that the Ford Triton motor is fraught with problems, and I had every single one of them. It spat spark plugs out, variable valve time actuator failure, cracking exhaust manifold, you name it, I had those problems. But I really liked the car, and I wanted to battle through and fix all those problems because I wanted the ownership experience of that big brute Ford Expedition. The last time it spat a spark plug for me, that was it. I couldn't cope with that anymore. Yeah, if Brits don't know this, Ford, when you see the threads on a spark plug of a normal spark plug, they're of a certain length, and by eye they look about right. On the Ford Expedition, they had about half those threads cut into the spark plug, and owners would be happily driving along, and all of a sudden there'd be this awful sound as literally your spark plug hits the underside of the bonnet because it spat the spark plug out of the cylinder head. The last time it did it to me, that was it. I don't want that ownership experience any longer, and I'll get something else. Now, this goes back to the last sort of video I did about Vanquish. Now, when we were editing that video and putting it together, my better half said, "Oh, that blue car is gorgeous. You know, why don't we get that?" Yeah, well, it's a Vanquish, and whilst they look gorgeous, the ownership experience is awesome in terms of driving it. You know, you drive down the road, you know you're in a muscle car. But they have a heap of problems, just like the Ford and the Land Rover that I just said, that if you weren't prepared to battle, then they'll catch you out. And the purpose of that video is to say, hey, if you really don't want to battle your way through ownership through fixing the car, then especially if you're retired and it's a pension pot that's paying for it, then there are probably better Astons. Look at Virage, look at a new Vanquish, rather than keep fixing the classic Vanquish. Now, after making that video, it reminded me of a trip that we went on when I used to work for Aston, and we went to America to sign off the V8 Vantage. So we drove them from New York to Denver, went to Vegas, and this was like a sign-off process. Now, when we were at Vegas, we popped into the dealer because one of the cars had a problem. We need to fix it. And the dealer really wanted us to take one of his clients out in the new V8 Vantage because he wanted to place an order, but this client wasn't sure whether he wanted the car or not, so he wanted to go out for a spin in one. So we took him out for a spin. These were it had been about a year before production, so it was quite a thing for him to go out in a pre-production car. I took him out, and I think I hit the rev limiter in third gear, and before I got to the rev limiter, he said, I'm buying it. As a thank you, he was a member of Las Vegas Gun Club, and he said, I'll give, there was about 4 of us engineers, I'll give all of you guys a VIP day at Las Vegas Gun Club. Now, I wasn't that much into guns, I must say, and I wasn't really looking forward to it. It was an appreciation day, and it started off with just firing a straightforward revolver at the target down the range, and I'd fired it a few times, and I thought, well, what's this all about? I'm not interested in this. Then they brought out a 9mm Glock and a Beretta. So the purpose of the day was an appreciation day. So they were bringing out different types of guns, so you could see the difference between them. Shot the Beretta and the Glock, and that was pretty special. I started to get into it then. After that was an M16 and an Uzi. Now, I found out by chatting with someone American that I used to work with, you could be on basic training for about a year and you don't get to fire an M16 on full auto. So firing an M16 on full auto was mega fun. The Uzi was a bit uncontrollable. It just wanted to point itself in any direction. But it was fun nonetheless. After that, now for the Astons, that was sort of like the end of the appreciation course, as it was, and you could stay on the range for the whole day and pick whatever gun you wanted. So I obviously picked the Walter PPK, which was this really little thing that you could put in the palm of your hand and it would fly around anywhere. The recoil sort of catched your skin a bit, as they're famed for doing, but it was a pretty cool gun, and you can see why Ian Fleming wrote it in for Bond. Next gun that came out, well, we tried to get the AK-47, if I remember rightly, that had a bit of an issue. And I chose, and this is the purpose, you'll see the analogy coming to Vanquish ownership. Next gun, I chose the Smith & Wesson 500, Dirty Harry's gun. Now, in the gun range, you went up to the desk and they gave you the gun, and it was in like a sort of plastic box type thing. The gun was sat in its place and you had the ammo on the side. You were told if you walk out of your booth and your gun isn't in the plastic box and it's in your hand, you will get shot by the attendants that were at either side. So walked down the range with the Smith & Wesson in my hand in the box, and all of the Americans in there are clapping. I just didn't understand why. You need to know what you're doing when you fire a Smith & Wesson 500. It will sort of kick back and the gun will hit you in the face and it will all go horribly wrong. You really need to know what you're doing. So I didn't have a clue why they were clapping. It's a national hero, the Smith & Wesson, and they were clapping it because someone was brave enough to take it off the board and fire it down the range. Now, that is exactly what Vanquish ownership is. If you're going to use that car and you're going to sort of drive it heavily, spiritedly, often, and you're going to keep it on the road, then you need clapping because you've chosen an ownership experience that demands the most committed petrol head. So as beautiful as and as muscle car as Vanquish is, then with all of the things that can go wrong with it, then you really do need celebrating, and well done to you. It doesn't mean that I don't look back at the car with an admiring glance, because I do. They're gorgeous. It's just that much like the Ford Expedition, they're spitting spark plugs. I can't cope as an ownership experience myself with the things that can go wrong on Vanquish. Now, I was quite subtle on that video, because if a garage owner is saying that, then you know, what do mere mortals that haven't got easy access to labour and parts? If the garage owner won't own a Vanquish himself, what does that say about normal petrol heads? Well, you know, much like the Land Rover or the Ford Expedition with its problems, you just have to know what they are, and that is the warts and all purpose of the YouTube channel. Like I say, the love-in area is going to be Facebook, and like I've been watching videos about Land Rovers, the Hemi, the 5.7 Hemi in the Dodge Ram. I'd love one of those. They've got some problems. Do I want to open the door to having those problems? No. And because I'm so busy fixing Astons, probably the answer is to buy another Mitsubishi Shogun. But it just goes to show, thankfully, people on YouTube put videos out about the 5.7 Hemi, the Land Rover, in Bamford Rose's case, the Vanquish, and we can all understand what it's like to own those cars. Now, I think in the comments section, there's quite a few people getting upset about the things I said about Vanquish. Perhaps they were mostly Vanquish owners. Mostly probably because Vanquish is languishing in resale value as it is, and too many negative comments about the car will keep the prices pinned down a bit anyway. Well, maybe that is what needs to happen to make Vanquish ownership harmonious. If the price is too high, and the purchase price that is, and then parts and labor to fix the thing was high also, that overall all up cost, if you weren't absolutely minted, is going to be a bit too much to bear. So if the realization that Vanquish is a little bit difficult to keep on the road meant that values come down a bit, then perhaps for petrol heads that's all about right, because then the all up cost of buying it and maintaining it sort of, you know, makes it sensible. That's just my opinion. Could be right, could be wrong. I think Vanquish, being the last hand-built Aston, Newport Pagnell car, Bond car, its value probably needs to be double what it is. To do that, the factory probably need to support it a bit better with parts to enable that. Yeah, it's just my opinion. Anyway, that's the commentary I wanted to give before we start about the Bamford Rose social media and YouTube channel. Sort of understand now what REM must have felt like when they got forced to make shiny, happy people, because people are telling me that I've got to smile and make more positive videos. But hey, the YouTube area is the warts and all. Just go over to Facebook and get the Aston love in. Right, so that's my little commentary. Thanks for bearing with me on that one. I see that there's a lot of comments popping up. We'll do our best to try and get through them. Sorry if I miss any. So we've had some sent in questions. I'm going to quickly go through some of these. There's quite a lot. Might have to do this a bit more regularly if it's something that people find interesting. Hi Mike, I have a question. Have you seen on a Gen 2 Vanquish the need for a rear subframe resto? I ask because my 2015 Vanquish, 13,000 miles, is looking a bit grubby around the mounting points, and I wonder if I need a rear subframe resto. Yeah, we've done 2 pre-purchase inspection recently, one on a 2013 V12 Vantage and one on a 2016 Vanquish. The 16 Vanquish was pretty close to needing a subframe resto. Last week we went out to Europe to fit a twin plate clutch on a V8 Vantage. Now this V8 Vantage was from 2007. It had done 112,000 kilometers. What's that, roughly 80,000 miles, something like that. It'd not been loved at all, this car. So it'd not been in for service, and like any independent would clean the underside, clean the wheel arch liners, clean the underside of the chassis rail. each year. So when you put it on a ramp at any given time, it looks pretty decent. This had never been cleaned at all like that. It's just had over 15 odd years of just having oil and filter services, but never being cleaned. Wheel arch liners not coming off. Now, this was in quite an easy climate, and a climate where there was never salt put down on the road. And the underside of this car looked absolutely immaculate. The rear frame looked like it would have done what as it came off the factory. If you looked at the wishbone arm fixings, the geometry adjusters, you know, they're zinc plated, they still looked brand new. They didn't look corroded. You look at damper springs, not corroded at all. And if you look at any anti-roll bar, the drop links, go through to the front, like radiator, and all of the normal areas that we pull a car up for on corrosion. This car, although it was unloved and hadn't been washed, there was zero corrosion. And it just shows that it's the UK roads and what they're putting down on winter, the salt. I don't know, outside of Europe what countries are putting stuff down on the road for ice and snow, but whatever they're doing in the UK is absolutely killing cars. I mean, when cars come in for service and someone's driven on roads that have had salt put down, you know, we have to wash them off. You know, if they're coming for a repair and the car's going to be with us for a few weeks, the guys put the car up in the air and look at the salt that's on the underside of some of the components. You just have to wash it off. We couldn't leave it on there that long. So there's lots of independents that now offer subframe restorations, and it is becoming a thing. And I think in the UK, a 2010 car that you put on the ramp, it's very, very rare to find a car sort of older than a 2010 plate car, and it doesn't need a subframe resto. And you know, if it's been in Scotland maybe, or areas where or it's driven in the winter more than another car, then you're going to need to, you know, do a subframe resto at some point. I mean, we charge 250 plus the VAT, and that is subframe removal, shot blast, powder coat, and reinstallation. Then as each car comes apart differently, each car will need different level of components to rebuild with, different suspension arms, anti-roll bars, handbrake cables, all the sorts of stuff that gets disturbed when you move the rear subframe. So that would be on top of the sort of 250. And as I say, cars getting older than 2010, you sort of need to build that in to purchase price, really. Now, on the couple of inspections that we did on those cars, and we pulled them up for subframe corrosion, because the vendors were not sort of dedicated Aston sellers, they really objected to the car being pulled up on a corroded rear frame. You just couldn't understand that the Aston could do that. And that sort of goes to show you're much better off to buy your car from sort of an Aston specialist, a garage that's used to selling Astons, because they're going to know the problems. It's the same when you have a car in. We had one in last week. Again, this was from a sales outlet, and its clutch, it's a Sportshift. It was at about 1800 counts, which any of you listening know that is the counts where the Sportshift's going to stop working. Now, try telling the vendor that the clutch is about to stop and the car will be disabled, because they just feel the car driving fine, and then they're faced with quite a big bill to repair it. Anyway, that's that question. Quickly moving on, because I could waffle on forever. I have an itch, only a V12 Aston can scratch, but which one? I'm wavering between a late Vanquish or early DB11. Which one should I go for? Well, I'm sure, yeah, most people know I'm not a fan of second century plan cars. I'd always go for the Vanquish. Those models sort of straddle each other. The Halo car was the Vanquish. The DB11 is sort of your run-of-the-mill car, so I would always go for the Halo car. I've driven a DB11 AMR. It was incredibly fast, but felt a bit soulless. You could luxuriate and sort of stretch out in the cabin because it was massive. I preferred the more sort of cosseted, sportier car feel, and even the Vanquish. It's a Grand Tourer, but it just felt more purposeful, more sports car like. So for all of those reasons, I'll be going for the Vanquish. 8-speed as well, fantastic, blipping up and down the 8-speed gearbox. Next question. New to Aston ownership, wife's dream car, and as she's just come through cancer battle, well done on that one. We now have one, a V8 Vantage Roadster 07, a good one I hope, 30,000 miles, full service history, but I have no garage access to power the trickle charger and the battery's gone flat in 2 weeks. Are they like that? The previous owner had it for 3 years on trickle charge, never had a new battery fitted, so I think it might need a new one. Yeah, definitely. We have this lots. So someone will bring their car in for service and it's been on life support permanently. It's been on a trickle charger. 2 days away from that, in our workshop, the battery's gone flat, and then you have to phone them up and say, I think your battery's a bit weak, you need a new one. I said, oh, no, it's fine. What they don't realize is that it is on life support, it's on the trickle charge, and their electricity bill must be through the roof. But my car, I didn't use it much this year, and I left it for about 3 months, and it started to get into winter and it was getting really cold, and obviously the battery's going to struggle when it gets cold. I came to it after that time, about 3 months, fired up straight away. And it was outside and not on a trickle charge. So if you got rid of the tracker, if the batteries are good, especially a good sort of Bosch S5 95 amp hour one, something like that, really you should be able to leave them 2 or 3 months, a V8 Vantage anyway, and they're fine. A Vanquish, 2 or 3 weeks, and they've chewed their battery. A classic Vanquish that is, a new Vanquish, any of the modern era ones, V8, DB9, V12 Vantage, DBS, should be able to go 2 or 3 months if there's no problem without going flat. So yeah, get yourself a new battery, make sure the tracker's off, and everything should be good. Next question, Christian Spencer 1978. Do you agree that a 92 Vantage V550 is the best Aston Martin ever produced? That is one brute of a car. I remember when I started at Aston in the year 2000, they took us down to work service as part of a tour round to familiarize yourself with the brand. And in work service was one of Rowan Atkinson's cars. We were told that one of his cars was permanently in because it's permanently being crashed. Next to it was Lennox Lewis's car, and this was a green V5 550. Wow, what a muscle car that was. What would they cost in the UK? Probably a couple of £100,000 plus, maybe, for a good example. Not my era. We wouldn't look after them. I'd have to take it somewhere else if I had one of those. Probably RS Williams is about the best place. But which best Aston Martin ever produced? You'd have to say it was DB7. Because that literally saved the company. If the DB7 didn't sell in the numbers that it did, then Aston wouldn't be here, because Ford wouldn't have taken that next step and go on to the Vanquish. You could say 177. You could pick any of these cars for a particular reason. Brutish looks, devastating performance. That's why Lennox Lewis had one, I suppose. But yeah, it's a good car. Whether it's the best or not, it depends which reason you pick. Hi, Mike. Looking forward to the live chat. Thank you very much. How many have we got? We've got Got 80 more people than I thought we had. Right, I have Sportshift 1 question. I've watched a forum chat, and you say you'd take an upgraded Sportshift 2 over a manual. Unfortunately, I'm stuck with a Sportshift 1, and I'd welcome your advice on what the gap is between upgraded Sportshift 1 and upgraded Sportshift 2. Do you think it's worth upgrading Sportshift 1 with a new clutch and flywheel, given that mine's practically new? Okay. So Sportshift 1 V8 Vantage, that's going to be your 6-speed ASM automated shift manual. 4.7 had Sportshift 1, the 6-speed automated shift manual. Sportshift 2, 7-speed on the Vantage S. Sportshift 3 V12 Vantage S, again 7-speed, just a bit better software and a twin plate clutch as standard. So I think I've said on previous videos, well, let's just review this. So if it was a 7-speed twin plate clutch V8 Vantage S, I would pick that over a manual, because I think the driving experience that you get from the paddle shift when you've got a decent twin plate clutch in is a better driving experience than a manual. Now, you know, if you're a manual purist and you wanted to stick with the stick, then that's fine. But I think if, and I probably would have said that a while back, but if you look at the driving experience you can have if you're a well sorted paddle shift, then especially coming down the box, you know, you can really buzz it quickly down the box, boom, 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 7.654. You can pull a couple of paddles, so you'd never go sort of 6.2 in a manual, but you would do in a paddle shift. So it's that extra dimension to driving that is quite enjoyable. And even though you were a manual purist, you'd have to admit that that was a sort of better sports car experience. Obviously, our race car is a manual, and all N24 GT4 race cars were evolved to the paddle shift. But it's one heck of an old school experience to pilot that thing around a racetrack heel and toe, and the sense of achievement and the reward that you get from that is probably a better driving experience for that particular person that wanted that, more than the extra enjoyment of like that downshift example I spoke about. So it is all personal choice, and there is no right or wrong answer. But I personally now would prefer a 7-speed with a twin plate clutch over a manual. So the 6-speed ASM1 or ASM2, I mean, with a single plate clutch when it's brand new, they'll sort of drive okay. There's probably a sweet spot of about 10,000 mile where you put the clutch in and sort of pull away sort of okay. It's still a bit clunky. It will thump a little bit through the gears, especially if you don't lift. It's okay for 10,000 mile. After that, it will start to have a little bit of a lull as you pull forward. It gets the nodding dog every time you change gear, but it will do that until the clutch expires. So a twin plate clutch is the way to go. So if you've got life left in your single plate, as this question said, well, you might as well eke as much of it out as you can. But the other way of looking at it is, if you upgrade to twin plate, you're probably not going to have to do that again in the lifetime of your ownership, because a twin plate clutch will last a lot longer than a single plate one. So, you know, there's no sort of benefit to be had really by sticking with the single plate. Unfortunately, the 6-speed gearbox with its older software controls and algorithms, you know, it hasn't got hill hold like the 7-speed has got. It hasn't got as sophisticated sort of pull away algorithm in clutch control. Even though you've put a twin plate clutch on a 6-speed, it's just making that gearbox the best you can. It's sort of not going to make it anywhere close a 7-speed. And this is why I really like Vantage S, because you've got 7-speed, got big front brakes, nice trim on the Vantage S as well. But you know, a 6-speed with a twin plate clutch in is fine. It's a drive. It hasn't got the sort of clunky drivability or rapid wear that the single plate has got, but it's very much a case of making what you've got the best it can, but it sort of won't rival a 7-speed. I hope that makes sense. Next question. Hi, I'm in Perth, Australia, and interested in your DB9 primary decat. Oh, decat. Can't say decat anymore. Have you seen the garages that are being taken to court because they're modifying cars? Cannot do a primary decat any longer. If you phone me up and tell me that your primary cats are clogged, they're broken, you've got P420 or P430, and you're not passing MOT, then I can fix your car for you. If you phone up and ask me for a primary decap, can't do that anymore. Anyway, do you supply kit that includes the manifolds? I'm in South Africa, and oh no, Australia, this one. Do I supply kit and remap remotely? No. So there are companies out there that offer sort of a flash kit where I think you buy a handheld device and you flash in their ECU reprogram. I don't operate like that. The way I flash ECUs is I must connect directly to them. So around the world, if people want us to do ECU upgrades, I can do that, but the ECU has got to be sent to me so I can plug into it, in this case on a bench. That's why it's really difficult for us to support jobs around the world, because you've got to put your faith in FedEx that your ECUs are not going to get lost. And also, if we ship out, you know, 10 grand's worth of upgrade kit and it doesn't arrive at its destination, that's us that's got to bear the brunt of that. It's very difficult to insure boxes floating around the world for the value that they cost for us to make. So yeah, if stuff gets lost or anything like that, it just makes it really uncomfortable. Right, so you got a DB9. So if I'm saying that we can't support posting stuff out, the best thing to do is make sure your misfire monitor is working, and then make sure at service you've got no misfires. If that is so, you're going to be mightily unlucky to fail a catalyst. It doesn't matter whether it was JM's car and the video that came in, or videos I do of my own. 14 years we've been doing this now. 14 years I've never had one of my customers fail a catalyst. This is because at service, misfire is checked. All the failed catalyst cars that I get are cars that come to us for the first time. They haven't got the misfire monitor enabled. Now, why would a car not have a misfire monitor enabled? If a salesman doesn't want a fresh customer coming back with a car that's got emissions lights or failure lights on, then just erase all of the adaptions and misfire monitor data so that it won't put its lights on anyway. You'd be amazed at the amount of cars that come in that have not got the misfire monitor running. So, you know, you've got to ask yourself, why was it turned off? Why is a car not running its misfire monitor? Salesmen not wanting their cars that have recently sold to come back in with error lights is one reason. So if anyone was jumping to the idea of a primary decat because they're worried about the consequences of it failing, well, yeah, if there's misfire that's allowed to be run unchecked for a prolonged period of time, it's very likely going to fail the catalyst. And if the catalyst fails, and it's highly likely that the engine is going to suck back up the debris. Now, if an engine was just tootled along a couple of thousand RPM, 3,000 RPM, that sort of thing, it might not suck the debris up, you're going to have to run it a reasonably high RPM, probably plus 4,000 RPM, and have quite a few sort of overruns. Even on a 4.3 V8. So a 4.3 V8 hasn't got a catalyst in the manifold. It's got it further downstream. It's quite a way downstream as well. If you imagine sitting in the car, it's more or less underneath the sort of trinket tray. On road cars, you never see a V8 ingest failed catalyst debris into the engine. On cars that have been used on a racetrack, I have. And this is because they are up to 7,500 RPM and then decelerating, and it's that usage there that is going to suck the debris back up. So anyone around the world, obviously I get a lot of feedback like this, saying that they've seen videos that I've done about talking about primary cat failure. Ensure that your misfire monitor is on. Ensure that you don't have any misfires. Drive the car, not overly conscious about it, but just be aware. I normally say fourth gear, drive it up quite a steep incline, feather the throttle from about 1,500 RPM up to about 2.5, and just feel if you can feel any sort of shudder, shimmy in the chassis, because it's at that point that's the onset of misfire. And if you can catch it at that point and take it into a workshop and get it fixed, you're unlikely to fail your catalyst. Now, I've seen a few cars on forums that have had, and these have been new ones as well, that have had some sort of fueling or some sort of issue and they've failed their catalyst. And it's been, when they've been very new, it does happen on any brand. There's a few. Mazda suffer this problem. There's a few brands that do have problem with catalyst failures, and it does wipe out the engine. But just make sure it's within service. Next question. I own a V8 Vantage S, lovely car. Unfortunately, I live in the north of Scotland. We don't have to apologise for living in the north of Scotland. We've had some fantastic holidays on the Caledonian Canal, hiring a boat going from, Fort William up to Inverness. If I had to do that holiday every year, I'd be a happy man. So you don't have to apologise for living in Scotland. I've been told that the hydraulic hoses on the gearbox are prone to failure. Okay, so this is an ASM car, and it's got two sort of silicone hoses from the reservoir feed into the ASM pack to change gear. Typically, these don't get advised at service that they need replacing. They're allowed to perish and crack, and then all your ASM fluid dumps itself on the floor and the car won't select gear, and you're stranded. Now, on an ASM car, I think it depends how harsh an environment the car was being used in. It's going to be quite rare for an ASM car to fail the pipes before it needs a clutch. So we regularly change the ASM pipes at the same time as doing a clutch. If you are having a clutch change, then I would always change the ASM pipes, especially because you need to lower the gearbox to change the pipes. And obviously, if you're having a clutch done, you need to take the gearbox out anyway. So to change the pipes separate from a clutch just means duplicating labor. I think you don't have to be worried about changing them. Just at your annual inspection, just get feedback whether they're looking cracked or perished. They crack just where they sort of clamp onto the reservoir or the ASM pack at the other end, and the sort of straight longer run, they don't normally crack there. So inspection, just a quick torch and examination of the pipes in that area, and if they're not cracked, then there's no need to do any preventive maintenance. I think from the onset of surface cracking of the pipe to a car completely losing its fluid is probably about 3 years. So that is quite a failure of service if anyone has SM pipes that do leak out the fluid, because for 3 years it's not been identified that they need changing. Good day. I thoroughly enjoy your forum chats. Well, thank you very much. And also sync with your opinion on tree huggers. Very, very good. I am 1 year into my Aston ownership with a 2007 4.3 coupe manual. The car is on 51,000 miles. I'm loving every second of it. Oh, another decat and ECU. Oh, can't decat. You're very lucky being in South Africa, because apparently you don't have any issues whatsoever with decatting or remapping ECUs. I must move to South Africa. Can I provide a map? Yeah, no, for the reasons that I've just said, although you can send me your ECU. Reason for decatting? Oh, you can in your market, lucky you. Unlock a few extra horsepower. Does it increase fuel consumption? Yeah, it does. I mean, because the catalyst isn't there, you can lean the mixture right out. Now, you know, I remember working for Rover in mid-90s when we first had catalysts come along, and every single, this would have been EU2, EU3, something like that, and every single engineer was saying, what the heck are we doing? You know, these catalysts are serving a purpose in this very sort of narrow, contrived drive cycle area. But outside of that, we have to actually throw fuel, an excess of fuel, so that excess of hydrocarbons in the exhaust gas quenches temperature of the catalyst to keep it cool. It's just insane. But no one really caused or kicked up too much of a stink, because if you're an emissions engineer, then EU2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 has put your kids through college on the gravy train. But it really, really is an absurdity. The emission cycle's like 20 minutes long. 19.5 minutes of it is easy to pass. It's all about the cold start, which is why from EU5 to 6, manufacturers have downsized. So there's less raw pollutants at cold start coming out before the catalyst starts to work. You know, the catalyst doesn't convert until about 330 degrees Celsius, and it takes, depends what tools, what tricks you've got, secondary air injection, maybe you've got heating elements in your catalyst, but it's going to take about 5 to 10 seconds to get the catalyst converting. So if you downsize, then you are just simply reducing the amount of raw pollutant at cold start before the catalyst is converting. And then the whole auto industry, they've downsized and they've pressure charged. It's the whole emissions test area, the contrived area that the cars are tested at. You could pass that test, but then hose in pretty much as much fuel as you liked at the other end at full power. If you have to keep the catalyst cool because it was so close, it really is a nonsense. So yeah, if you take the catalyst out and then someone remaps it back to optimum fueling, you can actually run a lot leaner. So your mile per gallon increases significantly. But we can't do a cat delete. I can only fix your catalysts for you. We're getting to the end of them now, and then we'll get on to some questions that have been coming in the comments section. Hopefully we've got them summarized. So, right, I've got a 2015 DB 9.2, very nice car. Rear window heating element has only got about 5 elements working. What would the solution be? Unfortunately, I think that is a glass out and a new window. I can't really think of any, even if it was my own car, some temporary measure that you could put in and it would work. So unfortunately, that does happen quite a bit on a pre-purchase inspection. It's really important to check, especially if it's front heated screen, that both sides are working, because you can often find that one side isn't working and, you know, miss something on a pre-purchase inspection that's really, really expensive to fix. Right, same car, DB 9.2. My carbon ceramic brakes are very loud when coming to a stop when I first use the brakes. This has only happened in the last month. After a few minutes of road use, the brakes are perfectly quiet. Any reason? So if on carbon ceramics you are coming to a sort of gentle stop, maybe you're braking down from 30 miles an hour to a standstill, and what is common to hear is a sort of air gush, a type sound as you're coming to a stop. If that was more sort of gravelly in a cement mixer type sound than an air gush, then it's probably something to worry about. The first thing to check would be that your pads ain't getting low, and the pins, the phosphor bronze mounting pins that mount the pad onto the backing plate, they're not sort of chafing through. That would be one source of noise. So check pads are okay. But the next is to really, rather than how they sound, how do they look and feel? Brembo issued a series of pictures. It was about 20 pictures, which sort of in chronology showed how the discs wore. So the graining started to increase density. The color started to go a bit weaker as the carbon content was coming out. And then ultimately, they turn into what we call cheese graters, because instead of being mirror smooth to the touch, they go extremely rough, like a cheese grater. Now, a cheese grater will probably sound a little bit like the noise that this chap is saying. And accompanied with that, obviously, because the discs are rough, is rapid pad wear. But you'll often find that the brakes are as sharp as anything when they're that rough. Obviously, they're actually performing quite well because the disc is biting into the pad. But pad wear is rapid. So rather than the noise, what are they like? Are they a mirror to touch? Are they smooth? Can you start to feel divots in the graining? What you can do is run them on, what Brembo call a rejuvenation cycle. So you can almost like bed them in again, and this will generate this transfer layer. This sort of a chemical reaction that exists between the pad and the disc, and you can sort of reverse a sort of rougher disc back to being within spec if it needed that. I would say here, I don't know, you've not said where you are. No, sorry, I don't know what country you're in. I would just take it to a garage and know what they were doing, and ask them what the condition of your brakes are. Now, anyone used to what I say about the timed out warranty, it is the right thing to get when you buy the car. See, I would go to a franchise dealer to buy a car from. I would get the timeless warranty, because when you purchase a car, if there was anything wrong with it, the corporate nature of the franchise dealer is going to fix it straight away. There's going to be no arguments. You're not going to be relying on the goodwill of the garage owner that you bought the car from. So in those cases, I often say that we don't really need to do a pre-purchase inspection if the car is coming from a franchise dealer. This is the blue sky sort of option. It should be perfect. The only two things I advise customers to get written down on an email is to write them a question: is there any misfire present via AMDS? And number two, what is the condition of each corner carbon ceramic brake and pads? Are the discs smooth, a mirror to touch? Is there any dense graining? Are the pads showing sufficient wear left? So when you've got that in writing, we do a post-purchase inspection, and if the reality was any different than what that statement is, then you've got something to go back on. Now, in the process of doing that, I still see emails today from service advisors where they say, "Sir, why are you worrying about your carbon ceramic discs? They're for life." That there seems to be this myth. I don't know why it was created in the Aston world, because it doesn't exist anywhere else, that these discs are for life. They're not, but dealers still think they are. They're a wear surface, they're a friction surface, so it's going to degrade. Obviously, it's not going to be for life. Now, if the car was in the hands of a pro racing driver, go whapping around Nürburgring, feedback from that usage, I think it was safe to say that pad wear would be about 500 mile per set. Before the discs were fully done, you'll get about 1,500 mile out of them. That is in the race world. Now, on the road car, probably 8 to 12,000 for a front set of pads, which means certainly no less than 40,000 mile out of the discs. We end up replacing more discs because of detailers putting cleaners on discs and eating away the carbon content rather than the discs actually wearing out. Now, we use a auto glim wheel cleaning product, and someone complained at me for saying detailers are putting abrasive wheel cleaner products on carbon ceramic discs. Look, we use such and such a product, and it says on the tin that it's safe. So my auto glim rep, really good, knowledgeable guy. I think he got involved with sort of spec of products for auto glim. I asked him, okay, on this auto glim bottle, it says that it's safe for, I can't remember exactly what the wording was, but basically, paraphrase them, it said it was safe for application on carbon ceramic brakes. So I got him to ask them a question, right, can I spray this on it? I'm cleaning a wheel, can it go on a carbon ceramic brake? And the feedback from them was that you should put nothing on a carbon ceramic brake. So there are no safe wheel cleaners out there. So yeah, in this case, was the disc unhappy because there'd been too much wheel cleaning product on it. Next question. Yeah, so I've got a 2007 DB9 Volante. I've had it about 2 years. Someone did a pre-purchase inspection, noted some stalling behavior. Then the car's deteriorated. Now it throws emission codes, goes into limp-home. After many months, an independent mechanic has determined that there was contaminated fuel in the tank. He changed the fuel pumps, cleaned the injectors, but the car deteriorated and so it wouldn't start. He's diagnosed that the primary cats are clogged. Now, I've had a few cars in with fuel contamination. Believe it or not, they've had diesel put in the fuel tank. Now, whether it's water, whether it's diesel, when you've got fuel contamination, it's very different from a sort of spark or plug or coil generated misfire. When you've got fuel contamination, it really wants to pop quite violently out the exhaust. You'd say it was backfiring, right? I suppose by a technical definition, backfiring is going a combustion charge going up the induction system, but backfiring is what it sounds like, popping out the exhaust quite violently. In those cases, the DB9 and V8, when you try and clean out that tank, it's quite a labyrinth design, and it's really difficult to get 100% of liquid out of the tank. You never can. So on a couple of cars that have come to us with fuel contamination, we've had to do exactly what you've said here. which is replace fuel pumps, injectors, and they always did fail the catalyst and clog them up. They got incredibly hot, and probably you look at the front face of the catalyst and it looks fine, but halfway down the catalyst, before the exit, is melted and is clogged up. And that's what's going to happen with that popping that is going down the exhaust pipe. So yeah, I would take the catalyst out of the way to start with, just for a trial, because you can't decat a car. And keep running it and running it and running it and running it, and eventually it will become better. All of that running will ensure that if there was any contamination and it was in the sort of labyrinth area of the tank that you couldn't drain, eventually you'll sort of run it through and then probably change your injectors again, and it will be okay. If there's any fuel contamination in these cars, there can be quite a long process to get to the bottom of it. You can check that fuel rail pressure is okay, lambda readings on either side is okay. Just go through basic sort of process of elimination to make sure that everything to do with fuel delivery, spark, if there was a big lambda correction on one of the 4 lambda sensors, that will tell you that something on a group of 3 cylinders is upset. That narrows sort of your search down a bit. But yeah, if these cars have suffered fuel contamination, it can be quite a long process. Right, that is I've got 2 more. I'll save these for the end. They're quite juicy ones. What we got now? Oh, we've got 3 people in now. Not bad for the first live stream. You can guarantee that one of those 83 is the secret shopper that the factory send to any open day you have. They'll be looking for any logo that you dare put up on the wall so that they can take you to court. I've been to shows. Hever Castle, I think, was a good one. You set your stall out and you'll always find this one person that is taking pictures of everything. And then you come to talk to them about an Aston. You're obviously interested in Astons. Which one are you interested in? And they won't want to converse at all. They're as miserable as sin. That's the secret shopper. And I can guarantee that, we've dropped from 83 to 80. Maybe it was the secret shopper. Anyway, we won't say anything controversial to get us into trouble. So if you are the factory secret shopper, you're wasting your time. Right, questions. Where do I start? All right, from the top very quickly. Abdullah Salem, hi there, how are you? How much money and time to go from 4.3 to 4.7 or 5 litre? Awful amount of money. It's doable. Anything is doable. You can do anything to any car or any motorbike you want. It's just the cost of it. If you are 4.3, you have to take the engine out. You have to strip it, bore it from its 89 to 91 millimeter, which you can do on the liner of the 4.3 as it was originally cast in. It's got enough meat to take it. You can then buy yourself a 4.7 crankshaft. So you take the stroke from 86 to 91 millimeter. So you're square 91, 91. That's a 4.7. 4.7 was also 1 mil bigger on the inlet valve, and that gives it about so going from 86 mil stroke to 91 and going from 89 mil bore to 91, that will take you from 380 horsepower to about 410. You'll get the last 5 or so on inlet valve. 5 litre. Actually, the 5 litre discussion is this related to one of the questions that's a bit juicy about the V12 engine that I'll answer later. We've done it a couple of times, and there's one 5 litre that is running around in a customer's car now, and it's as punchy as hell, and it's still going. there isn't enough meat on the in the cylinder block to accept a new liner, so you have to do a bit of machining. And when this liner is machined in, now you're susceptible to liner sink, a few other issues, which would cause sort of a head gasket failure and then coolant or combustion gas to leak out. We don't offer it any longer as a product. It was a wish. It was like the headline Halo product, but it's too much engineering that can go wrong, and we can't risk that. You can only sell stuff which is 100%, so I wouldn't do a 5 litre. In this question, how much money does it take? Bluntly, to answer it, by the time you bought a crankshaft from the factory, which is 3.5 grand plus VAT, you've bought 8 pistons, done all your machining, you've taken the car engine in and out the car, you're certainly going to not have any change from 30 grand. Then you're going to have to put a twin plate clutch to it, exhaust manifolds and cats, probably a big brake kit. And although all of that is doable, I think the answer is go and buy a V12 Vantage, especially a V12 VS on its 7-speed, awesome car. That's what I would do. Now, as a company, Bamford Rose, a lot of these really expensive modifications, we used to do more of them 10 plus years ago. That's because obviously the demographic of the owner is changing, and when the cars were a lot newer and the owner was a bit richer, we used to do lots of those modifications. We don't do those big modifications now. It's very sad because there's quite a lot of engineering capability that we've got, which is going to waste. But that is the reality of the changing world that we operate in. I'm perfectly happy with it. You know, I'm a design development engineer by trade. Servicing and repairing cars is really enjoyable to me, although it's very different than that very sort of corporate, clever design and engineering world. But anyway, next question. Hi, Mike. Should I have to mention it's a 96 inline 6 manual owned for 18 years? Remind me. A cylinder head issue. Okay. So I think someone had an inline 6 with a DB7 inline 6. This was the Jaguar AJ. Was it 16? Can't remember. So now he's switched over to driving a 911, but boring. I've driven a few 911s. Yeah, I'm not a Porsche man. For cars, it has to be Aston. Bentley. I would quite happily have a Bentley Brooklands. I love that. When do they come in? 08 Bentley Brooklands. I'm not brave enough to have a Mulsanne for the same reasons as I'm not brave enough to own a Vanquish. But Porsche, I don't know. I don't think they're boring. But Aston 1936. Hi, Steve. So what are your thoughts about adding wheel spaces to Astons? Yeah, don't do it. I see some horrific wheel spaces in our workshop. The 5 or 6 mil ones are okay. If you were on the older style wheel nuts, you update to the newer style wheel nut that's got a couple of mil extra thread cut into them, and then when you've put your 5 or 6 mil spacer in, then that's totally fine. But we see these spacers where they're I don't know, 11 mil or 20 mil, something horrific. They put them onto the studs that are on the wheel bearing, chop those off so the bolt to the spacer attaches to the stud, and then the wheel spacer has got its own studs. So this spacer is like a sandwich that's using the existing studs to bolt on. It's horrific. When you get the car up to quite a higher speed, 70, 80 mile an hour, and you tip into a bend, you notice it. The car doesn't want to tip in and follow a tight arc like it used to. Yeah, don't do it. I'm just getting told to scroll up because there's a lot of comments I haven't seen. Sorry, I've been prattling on. I've missed the comment section. Right, Moz Ali, apologies if I've not pronounced that correctly. Vantage, fault code P1750, gear selection and clutch uncalibrated, no self-learning. Okay, so I think you'd only get that code if your transmission control module was new or the software had been reflashed, and you need to run it through on AMDS, the gear position learn self-tune sequence, and then run it through a rapid clutch learn sequence. I don't think a car, if it was just driving along merrily, would suddenly pop up with code P1750 because its gear positions were already calibrated. Now, there are some electronic modules on the car which cause haywire to the transmission control module. For instance, a tracker that can fail and wipe out the trans module. A rear parking sensor module can get waterlogged, and because it's on the same sort of communication line as the trans controller, the haywire signals from the parking module corrupt and stop working the trans module. Perhaps you've got, if you were driving along merrily and all of a sudden this fault code came up, perhaps you've got another module that is sort of causing a problem. If this was in my workshop and that was the case, I would disconnect all those known modules that could affect the trans module. I'd reflash the software in the trans module. I'd do a self-tune, learn the clutch, and hey presto, that should be okay. I'd then one by one connect in all the other modules, and if one of them caused the problem, then there you go. That's the issue. That's as much help as I can be now. I hope that helps. Right. James Neville, your favorite Aston, please, Mike, and also the Aston that depicts the Aston driving experience. My favorite Aston, I've never driven DB4 Zagato, without a doubt. I'd never want to drive it because I just want the thought, the illusion that that car was perfect. I think the best Aston that I've driven is the V12 Zagato, the one of 61. That's really, really special. Now, a lot of people can say that it's just a normal V12 Vantage with a body kit on, and they'd be correct in saying so, because chassis, engine, braking, it was all the same as a regular V12 Vantage. It does lose a little bit of weight, and that does tip the scales. It does make a difference. It feels more agile, and it feels like the engine pulls a bit quicker just because the vehicle weight is less. You cannot stop anywhere, fuel station, anywhere in that car, and people not comment about it. It's gorgeous. Non-Aston people will comment about it. I think it's a shame that Aston sort of diluted the Zagato range. They've produced far too many of them, and they've just lost their specialty, I think. But that original V12 Vantage Zagato is a real special car, and it's more exclusive than a 177. What would you recommend to a first-time purchaser? V8 Vantage or DB9? Neil Martin, hi Neil. 4.3 V8 Vantage manual is the most easiest sort of ownership experience. That if you correct a few things that an original car would have wrong with it, door modules, radiator, a couple of other bits and bobs, nothing major, put a twin plate clutch on it. Now all of a sudden that 4.3 V8 Vantage manual is the most easiest Aston to keep on the road. It'd be trouble-free. It would just need servicing, brakes and tyres. If you add Sportshift, you just add another thing that can go wrong. And as you work your way up the newer models until you get touch sensitive dash and all of these sort of things, convertible roof, you're just adding lots and lots of things that could potentially go wrong. If you get a 4.3 V8 Vantage, not that you can decat it, but if you were to put a sports exhaust system on it, you can more or less get the power of a 4.7, put a twin plate clutch on it. And as I say, if you did door modules and got rid of that plastic end cap radiator and put a metal rad on, that car's not going to go wrong. Engine bulletproof. 4.3s don't go wrong. The Graziano 6-speed manual gearbox won't go wrong. And it'd be the most easiest car to keep on the road. You said there, V8 Vantage or DB9. Well, DB9 is a completely different car. It's GT Cruiser, bit of a pipe and slippers car for wafting along. The original DB9, they're absolutely cracking cars. We've got one in this week. It's an 06. It's got 13,000 mile on. When you open the door, this car smells brand new, and the leather, everything is so tight. It's absolutely beautiful, beautiful car. Now that is in sort of the danger zone for the DB9 tick because of the small ambush. Now, it would be unfair to say this was going to happen to every single engine, and you certainly wouldn't say anything derogatory about that car because it's gorgeous and beautiful and so new, just because it might have a particular problem looming. But the DB9s as a whole, they tend to need more maintenance. I don't know why. It's not because they're an everyday car, but I wouldn't say the DB9s get run into the ground. That would be wrong. Deferred maintenance. It's very easy for owners to defer maintenance on a DB9. If you were going to look at a DB9.2, so 510 horsepower, electronic adaptive suspension, carbon ceramic brakes, quite a nice facelift to it, as opposed to a V8, that's now quite a conundrum. I'd like both of those, but I think because of the 4.3 V8's sort of ease of ownership, and it's not going to cost a packet to keep it on the road, then that would be the winner. DB9, one true Brit. Hello there. Model year 09 owner. Model year DB9 09 owner. Aston claim that the gearbox oil does not need to be changed as it's supposed to be a lifetime fill. This car's done 51,000 kilometers, Canadian vehicle. If you phone up a franchise dealer and ask for a ZF Lifeguard, whether it was Lifeguard 5 for the DB7 gearbox, whether it was Lifeguard 6 for your 6-speed DB9 gearbox, or it was Lifeguard 8 for the ZF 8-speed in Vanquish, they don't sell it. You can phone up a dealer and get the Castrol BOT 270A for the Graziano manual. That's available. They sell it annoyingly in 1 litre tubs. It gets really difficult to manage in a workshop when you're changing a lot of that and you only have to work out of a 1 litre tub. But a franchise dealer will not sell ZF Lifeguard. They sell the sump pan for the ZF gearboxes, but this is generic. You could go off any website anywhere and buy a ZF sump pan, which has got the filter in it. You don't need to buy it from Aston. If you watched a video on a repeat that I did a while back, the owner was very meticulous, and his repeat had only got 30,000 mile on, and he wanted to change his oil, and he came in for service. We changed it. I said it was completely unnecessary, and then when we filtered what was in the sump pan, there were shards of metal in it. Now I wasn't as in tune with his own car as what he is. Obviously I can test drive it, but I'm not sort of 100% dialed into it. So I said to him, when you get home, you're going to have to tell me what it shifted like. He waited until he'd done a cold start and drive, and he said in every sort of usage, cold start, driving, shifting through the box when it was warm, he noticed the oil change. I mentioned the Land Rovers earlier. They use the ZF 8-speed in the newer ones and the 6-speed in the older ones. Go on those forums and people are religiously changing sump pan and an oil, and it prolongs the life of the gearbox. And gearbox differential, they're not making these anymore, and if you want to get replacement parts, you can't. So if older car suffered diff failure or gearbox failure, it's going to be second-hand parts that keeps the car on the road. I think you can alleviate a lot of these failures if you throw fluids and filters at it unnecessarily, so in terms of time to the schedule. I would probably be advising 50,000 miles. At 51,000 kilometers that you're obviously well in on that. But on time, I think if you look on BMW forums and Land Rover forums, they're saying, 6, 7, 8 years, 50, 60, 70,000 miles. I'd be doing that just to preserve it. Working our way down the list. DB 9.2 Bluetooth mic not working anymore. I have RAC warranty that covers the work. Does Bamford Rose cover the work? No, we don't do warranty work for. Well, if someone's got a generic policy, we can do warranty work for them. The timeless policy. Now I've got the policy. I've been reading the small print. And any garage can do work for that. But the factory or the dealerships will make out that it can only be a franchise dealer. But I wouldn't want to deal with the timeless people. Now, Bluetooth infotainment modules, the whole infotainment system, these can be a nightmare. If you need to do anything, say to the touch sensitive infotainment module, that whole dashboard that's touch sensitive, on the AMDS system, you'll get a file from the factory which has to go on a separate memory stick, and then to reboot it, you flash that in through AMDS. Now, we did some of this years ago, and it's quite regular that they fall over. And then they need some quite specialist engineering attention to get these touch-sensitive dashboards back to life. As a rule, we are nuts, bolts, and greasy stuff, and infotainment modules, sort of phone connectivity is better done by people that specialize in it, to be honest. Any tips on getting dead center on a DB7? I have to do a cylinder head gasket, and my Jag local mechanic has done everything on the car except this. Nervous of what he might find next. I don't know what you mean there. Top dead center is obviously the position of a piston. Obviously, normally it's cylinder number 1, so that you can time it back up properly. If it is a DB7 V12, you can't really go wrong on the sort of cam wheel and timing marks, especially if whoever stripped it sort of paint pen marked everything as they were doing it, which they should have done. You're going to have to give me a bit more info for that question, I'm afraid. Mike, do you have any fuel brand suggestions now that Esso have abandoned their commitment to keep their top grade fuel ethanol free? Yeah, a real big problem. Right, in the Astons, when I was working at the factory, I did a calibration on a V8 Vantage for E85, and the fuel pump, pipe work, injectors, all materials, rubbers, everything can tolerate E10 absolutely no problem. I'm pretty sure they can tolerate E85, so I don't remember having to change anything. Because the Astons are not flex fuel, so they don't sort of work out what ethanol content there is in the tank at any one time, then it won't optimize the fueling calibration to run properly on the ethanol that has got a lower stoichiometric rating. Normal gasoline without any ethanol, 14.5 parts air to 1 part fuel. That's stoichiometric air fuel ratio. Something like E85 is going to be down at 13.3, I think, something like that. So you'd have to recenter the fuel in to put a lot more fuel in to take into account that lower burn efficiency. Then the good thing about ethanol is it's got a much higher octane rating, so you can wind some spark on. So if the vehicle's flex fuel and properly optimized fuel for the higher ethanol content, it'd be really good. But these cars are not. Not many cars are. And for a while in England, Esso were sort of bucking the trend and winning a lot of business, no doubt, by keeping their super fuel ethanol free. They had to put E5 on the nozzle on in the filling station to comply with the green ideology, but really their fuel didn't have any ethanol in it. Now, it was September last year that Esso stopped doing that. For what reason, I don't know. I never researched it, because as soon as they put ethanol into their fuel, then I'm not interested in Esso fuel anymore. So I just buy the best one that you could get. BP, Shell, it's all about the detergents that go in. Now, on one of my cars, it's a carburetor turbo from the 80s. Ethanol causes me a huge problem. So I have to put no ethanol fuel in that car. Also, two-stroke motorbikes. There's some debate about whether the ethanol washes fuel off the bore. Whether the ethanol washes the oil film off the bore. But what it definitely does do is sit on the plastic cages that the crankshaft main bearings are in, and it's going to crack, deteriorate those. So again, in a carbureted car and two-stroke motorcycles, I can't run any ethanol. Your Aston can perfectly tolerate E5, E10, no problem whatsoever. It's not going to detonate. It's not going to have any adverse effect to the tank, the pump, the injectors, anything whatsoever. All you'll notice is that it's a bit sluggish, maybe on throttle responsiveness, and you don't get the tank range that you once got on the proper fuel. Unfortunately, this whole sort of the growing and harvesting and shipping and refining and mixing of the ethanol, it's serving the environment no benefit whatsoever. I guess that the people that have legislated it have probably got family members that farm it, because that's the only reason it makes sense. But yeah, it's a real shame that Esso have done that, and there's no answer. So don't worry about it. It's not going to cause the Aston any problem, and buy the best fuel you can. Are ProDrive V12 engines susceptible to issues suffered by road engines? ProDrive V12 engines. I guess you mean like early GT2, GT3, something like that. I'm not sure. A lot of those race engines were sort of hand built. when they used the V12, they didn't carry over the valve train. They'd used a different piston and rod. So, in race, there are no issues, are there? Because they need to survive the race. So, I don't think even the GT4 V8s, they got stronger bearings. Perhaps didn't suffer the problems that the road cars suffered from. Had a Discovery 4 landmark until some tosspot nicked it. Great car. Actually, I've been looking. Ashley Wright. I've been looking at the landmark because they're beautiful, and they're spec'd really, really well. HSE plus TV and a couple of extra goodies. But yeah, one customer came into the workshop the other day. He'd ordered a brand new Range Rover. He's an older guy. And when he buys cars, didn't think twice about the insurance, because insurance is just something that he pays. Now, because of the theft and other problems that they've been having, he's in his 60s and he couldn't get insurance on a Land Rover. He had to cancel his order. Can you believe that? I couldn't believe it. Of course, Land Rover offered him insurance, but he was a bit dubious about going for that, because if they suddenly increase their premium a year down the road and no one else will insure it, he's stuck with this car that he can't use. I was gobsmacked. Bear with me, I've got to scroll down. Am I scrolling to the top or the bottom for the newer questions? But to the bottom. MacBooks, I don't use them. Having recently purchased a 2015 Vantage 4.7, I find the exhaust tone to be slightly disappointing compared to my previous 2006 DB9 with a secondary decat improving noise. You cannot decat to improve noise. Someone will be caught before you know it. If you were using it on the track only, that's a different matter. 2015, I think there's the clue there. So across the years, the noise drive-by regulations sort of tightened a little bit, and the sweet spot on a back box is a 2011 to about 13 V8 Vantage S. On one of my previous videos, I think I say what part number that is, BG something or other. Sorry, I can't remember it off the top of my head. That back box will make the exhaust note a bit fruitier. And obviously, talking hypothetically, if you were to remove catalysts as well as that back box, then yeah, it's going to sound quite nice. My own car's a Roadster, and Roadster back boxes are even quieter. Obviously, with the roof down, they didn't want to make it too loud for the occupants. So the newer models you've got, the quieter they can sound. I know a lot of sort of AMR V8 owners have been a little bit disappointed with the exhaust note, and they've searched out the 2011 V8 Vantage S back box. So playing around with back box, playing around with catalyst configuration, yeah, you can get the noise to where you want it to be. I mean, the good thing here is that all of these cases that have been to court for people that have modified cars, these have been lunatics that have put a lot of overrun crackle on, which sounds absolutely ridiculous, and drive around high streets at 2 o'clock in the morning having races. No one in an Aston does that. And in fact, we fit a 3-way switch to give a permanent silent mode. So you only make noise when you're not going to annoy anyone. So yeah, you can reconfigure your exhaust and put a switch on to make it go silent, and you don't annoy anyone. I'm currently rebuilding the engine on my 2004 Classic Vanquish. I am also converting the car to manual gearbox. Already have many manual conversion parts. Would like your opinion. IDI Diesel, hello there. Okay, rebuilding your own engine, well done. Good to see people getting stuck in. There is no right or wrong answer on this. There's just someone's opinion, and everyone's opinion is going to differ. When we first had a manual Vanquish into the workshop, This was a car that the owner had given it to us for a period of time, and we sort of stripped quite a few components down to reverse engineer the manual installation that Works were doing. It was quite simple, you know, there's not a lot to it. But when you drive the car, for me, the gear lever is not ergonomically great. Obviously, it can poke through the interior trim in the position it has to, because the selector shaft on the gearbox is where it is. That's not the best place ergonomically when you selecting gear for your sort of elbow to rest and it feel nice on your shoulder. Well, it was never engineered to be a manual, so you know, it is what it is. If you've got big hands, you'll often find as you go forward, your sort of fist can clatter the dashboard. So that's some downsides to it. The ergonomics are not 100% great. I think that when you open the door of a Vanquish and you hear the gearbox pump run, you know, that's supercar. When you sit in the car, paddle into neutral, it's quite a experience, quite a ceremony to start it. It gives you a supercar feeling. I think when you go manual, you lose that sense of supercar occasion. Also, if you're taking a long swooping bend and changing up or down the gearbox, then as you pull a paddle, especially if you're coming down, the engine revs are going to blip, it's going to speed match, and that's going to be a smooth transition down the box or up the box. When you're manual and you press the clutch in, you're not, no, the electronics are not doing it. You could do it if you blipped the throttle, but you know, not many people could get on with heel and toe. The car sort of has a little bit of a nosedive because it's quite weighty, and the drive line's upset by not having that speed match shift. Now, the gearbox in the Vanquish is the Tremec T56, which is the American muscle car gearbox of choice. If someone's doing a resto mod, then to their 60s muscle car, I really like the American muscle car era, then they choose a T56. But the T56 in manual form has been built as a manual. It's got detents and plungers in, which when you select gear, holds it in gear. On the ASM, so the Vanquish might well be a T56, but it was built as an automated shift manual. It hasn't got that, because what holds it in gear is the fluid line pressure from the ASM pack. That means if you convert your ASM T56 and put a stick on top of it, you've got some quite close gear gates. So this is another, it's very difficult to go between the gear gates and get the right gear. And the feeling of it isn't quite right because it hasn't been built as a manual to start with. So for all of those reasons, I would do what we do at Bamford Rose, which is bulletproof the automated shift manual system. So make sure the pump, magnetic gear position sensor, ASM pack has been refurbished, got a brand new clutch. When you've done all of that to it and set it up properly, it will be really reliable and you can whap up and down the gearbox without any problems. But because garages struggle to do that, now how many videos do you watch where someone goes to drive a Vanquish and the gear system is fallen over? There was a French customer in my workshop a week or so back. I can't remember the name of it now, but there was quite a famous French car reviewer that had done a review on a Vanquish, and the gearbox light went wrong for him. JM has been for a couple of drives and the gearbox has gone wrong. It happens, and this, you know, you'd be surprised. There are some specialists out there, they call themselves specialists, and they can't set up a Vanquish gearbox properly. If it's been set up properly, then it will be robust, reliable, and you could go on a drive and you're not going to break down. But I know some people, even though that is possible, choose to go manual. And despite all the things that I've just said that are not quite ticking the boxes for me, then the manual ticks the box for this person. If they drive it and they can get over the gear gate issue, you could just go fore and aft. What would it be? Third to fourth, just keep it in there. The engine's got so much torque, you wouldn't have to worry about other gears. If they've got small hands, if the ergonomics of the shoulder, positioning, elbow, everything, it didn't matter to them, then all of the considerations that I've just said are not important to them. And the manual totally does get over any gearbox issues. So I would say drive one first and then make up your mind, because it is personal to you. But it sounds like you must have your engine out, and you've already got bits to go manual. So you've got your heart set on it. So plow on. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm sure you'll end up with a good car. Okay, so you got the car very cheap from auction. It was a written off, uneconomical to repair. It had the V12 tick. If you listen to the people that commented on my Vanquish video the other week, the car doesn't have any of these problems. But yeah, hey, it happened to you. I understand the compromise of a manual conversion. I got an original works manual conversion gearbox from a Vanquish that caught fire. I prefer the manual. Yeah, good luck with your build. I'm sure you're going to build a cracking car, and you got it at a good price. And this is fine when the project is as enjoyable as driving the car itself. It's a labor of love. It's done at home. It doesn't matter how long it takes, then absolutely fine. Those are the sorts of projects that I really like, and I like to see people doing them. Bear with me as I scroll through some comments. Having recently purchased a 2015 Vantage. No, we've done that one. Whereabouts is that one?
David.
Yeah, I told you I don't do MacBooks. You're going to have to bear with me.
Give me some.
Okay. David Whitaker. Hi, David. You have 4.7 with ASM1. Keep getting fault, no gear change possible, but the car drives very well. Any ideas? The last owner replaced the clutch, but nothing to prove. Last owner said he replaced the clutch, but nothing to prove that he had. Fault, no gear change possible. I would say, as a first guess, fluid pressure will be low. Had a car recently where, so the sensor in the ASM pack that measures pressure, that has got a supply voltage that runs the sensor. So this is what the voltage, as a reference, the sensor has this on the 5-volt circuit, and many sensors around the car are on this 5-volt circuit. And if the voltage, let's just say for argument's sake, went from 4.9 to 5.1, if it went over that threshold either way, it would ping a fault code on voltage supply. So the pressure wasn't actually an issue, but the feed voltage that runs the sensor is the issue. So I had one car shutting down on that recently. So it might not be anything to do with hardware as such. Could be something like that, supply voltage. Because it says fault, no gear change possible, that's why I think it'll be something to do with pressure. I would reflash the software in a transmission control module. I'd run it through gear position learn, and go from there, start from basics. It helps. In our workshop, we have lots of slave spare components that we can just use as test pieces, because AMDS is good for telling you a code for a symptom, because it's not that clever, AMDS, and you use it to go down a path of fault finding from the information that it is giving you. That's why the fairly unscientific approach of process of elimination by swapping parts is sort of like quickest thing to do. In your car's case, if I was happy that everything was okay to do a pressure measurement, I'll put a new ASM pack on it, trial that, see what happened. The clutch position sensor in the slave cylinder, that would be the next thing I went for. You just have a process of elimination and start with the easiest. Hope that helps. John Ogg. Hi, John. Greetings from Australia. Hello. Hope you received my Christmas card. Look forward to hearing back. Email. Keep up the good work. Yeah, it's really, really difficult for us to ship components and support cars that are a long way away. We do fly fits. There's a couple of technicians that will go out armed with bits in suitcases. That's a possibility. It's just that costs a lot of money on the logistics. In the UK, we've got from DB7, Vanquish, V8, DB9, all the way up to the second century plan cars, something like 15,000 cars on the road. If you look at franchise dealers, it's 17. If you look at all independents that are sort of okay at looking after the new era cars, you certainly get yourself up to no more than 30 garages spread between 15,000 cars. It's such a problem in other countries, especially in Germany and America, where in those early years, 30% in those markets were Astons. It was 30% UK, 30% Germany, 30% States, 10% rest of the world. If the UK, the home country of Aston, is struggling for decent garages, what are these other markets like? And I can understand that cars don't get themselves fixed. I really enjoy doing what we're doing in terms of videos and stuff, you know, for the problems that I said on the Discovery and the Dodge Ram and any other car. The first thing I do when I'm thinking about going into a car is search out the videos that someone like me is making for them on YouTube, and then you can make an informed decision. I'm a petrolhead, cars, motorcycles, everything, and I like helping other petrolheads. I like doing the social media that we do because it helps other petrolheads along the way. It just gets difficult in that, you know, we can't look after the world's Astons, and there is no one really that does content on Astons. It's difficult, and I guess it's frustrating because if you were in a territory away from Bamford Rose, you knew there was a garage that could fix the problem that you got, but you're just too far away. Yeah, I can see it's frustrating. I'm sorry, I've got no answer for it other than a fly fit, which turns costly. DJ Warren, a very enjoyable live chat. I love a 470 DB9, but nervous about the flat battery issue. Car would have to live outside. If it's, as I was saying, my car earlier, I left it for 2 or 3 months. If they're fine, then that sort of duration you should get out of a battery. Tracker, #1 problem for battery drain. Robert Plant, sorry, should have been clearer. We are about to do a head gasket. Any tips? Dealer in Miami wanted more than 10,000 just to start. DB7 inline 6, 1996. Hate to junk it. the Jaguar forums, there should be a ton of help out there to do that job, because that engine is the AJ6 engine. I had one myself in a Jaguar XJ6 that I used to own. I would say that if the garage that you're taking it to doesn't know the procedures on how to take it apart and put it back together again, it's probably not, that garage probably isn't the best place to undertake that work with. There's a lot that can go wrong on it, and you want to know that they've done the job perfectly. But that AJ6 engine is it's pretty simple. It's quite agriculture. It's not a difficult process to take that engine apart again.
James Scott.
Whereabouts that one?
James Scott.
I told you I don't do iPads.
This.
James Goss. Hi there, James. Having recently purchased 2015 Vantage 4.7. Yeah, we've done that one. That was the exhaust in that one. Duncan Turner. Hello, Duncan. Hey, Mike. Rebuilt wiper motor doing well. Yeah, so actually it's a good tip this. Thanks, Duncan, for mentioning this. On the older cars, that cantilever system on the wiper motor can suffer play. And you've got your wipers. You can move the drive one maybe. This is a little test that I do. I get one of the wiper blades and I just move one of them slight bit, and I want to check that the other one is moving with it. Then you know that that whole cantilever link system is working okay. What can happen is the joints in that lever system wear, and you'd move one wiper arm and the other won't. You move it quite a bit and the other won't move at all. At that point, if you add the wipers on maximum speed, full pelt, the inertia as they're whipping is so much that you will sort of like fail your wiper assembly. On the V8s and the V12s, to get at that wiper motor mechanism, you've got to take the inlet manifold off. It's quite a big job, and then put it back together. I would say, top tip, I wouldn't ever really operate the wipers on full pelt. You've got to be driving through some pretty bad rain to need it on maximum speed. And if you just kept it ticking over at normal speed, you won't have that whip and inertia in the mechanism, and you'll just keep the mechanism in fine fettle. Hi, Mike. Could you recommend a code reader for a V8 Vantage? Great night. You should do it again. Yeah, I'll do it again. I like doing it. If we've got some good questions and we're good at summarising them all. Code reader. Now, it doesn't have to be anything on the V8 sophisticated. For choice of code reader, it depends on the purpose that you want the code reader for. I would say that most owners just want to understand what the engine codes have been flung, understand that they were your typical Aston glitch, make a note of them, reset them, so you haven't got an error light on the dashboard, and get in touch with someone like me that can look at a fault code and determine whether it's something you need to come into the workshop for, or it's something that you could ignore. You know, your 40-50 quid basic scanner from Halfords is going to do that job perfectly fine. So if that's all you wanted to do, then just get the cheap one. If you wanted to do a bit more than that, maybe you had a car that was flinging a lot of codes, there's Autel's, or there's other ones that are quite sophisticated. Download a database from the internet. They can even connect and talk to Sportshift, transcontrol module, airbag module, and stuff like that. So you won't get a basic fault code checker that's just doing the engine, go and reset airbag codes. So if you wanted to do something simple mainly just for the engine, just to reset the code and reassure yourself that it was nothing serious, then just get the cheap and cheerful one. It'll be fine. For a V12, this is where the cheap and cheerful one will reach the limits of its use, because it will only read the primary ECU. So obviously there's one ECU for the driver's side banker cylinder 1 to 6, and a separate ECU for the passenger side of the engine cylinder 7 to 12. If you have got a V12 then, and you've got a cheap and cheerful code reader, it's only going to read the primary, and you could have your codes and the shutdown being generated on the secondary, but you can't read it because your cheap and cheerful reader won't read it. So it really does depend on what you want to do and what car you have. The car's only going to shut down really if there's a pedal issue or a throttle body issue. Those are the only codes that are going to cause a limpome. And if you wanted to get yourself out of a limpome, then that would be one reason that you had a fault code checker. But if you had a problem with your throttle pedal or the throttle body and it was continually putting you into limpome, then you're better off getting into a garage and having it sorted out quick. You don't want unrequested acceleration going on. So again, if you were a customer where the garage did most of the work, then you sort of don't really need too sophisticated fault code reader. So there's lots and lots of sort of inputs into choosing one. Depends what you want to achieve. DB 9.2 PSL. Steering wheel vibration around 90 mile plus, wheel balanced help, but vibration still present. What else could it be? Okay, so DB 9.2, you've got carbon ceramic brakes, and I assume that you just did a wheel and tire balance. There was a factory service bulletin to dynamically balance the disc assembly with the wheel and tire. That's probably what your issue will be. So you balance the wheel and tire as normal on the balance machine, but then you take the disc off the car, put the disc on the balance machine, find the high and low spots on that. There is a weight limit. Can't remember what it is off the top of my head. I think it's plus or minus 5 grams. And there's some flats on the outer circumference of the disc. So you could shave a little bit of weight off there. Get your disc within balance, and then oppose the high spots and the low spots, and that should improve it. That may be your problem. Bear with me as we sort the MacBook out. I'm just going to sort the comments that I've missed. Okay, comment from Raj. They have replaced all coils and plugs. Okay, so I have a 2017 DB11 V12. Well, I'm not going to be able to help much on this. And because you had a significant misfire, they replaced all coils and plugs. No. Okay, so you got a DB11 V12. You've had a significant misfire. They've replaced the plugs and coils. Still hasn't helped out. You've still got a misfire. Likely causes. I'd be swapping ECUs. Make sure the ECU wasn't the cause of the misfire. I guess then on that, if they've already done plugs and coils, you've only got harness in between that. You'd be trialing a harness If you need to identify whether it is mechanical, if it's mechanical, they say they've done a compression and leakage, and that was okay. Contamination in fuel, I doubt it's that. But if we're totally sure it's not mechanical, then it must be electrical. Harness, ECU swap, and that's about it. This is where you often on forums read that the car at the franchise dealership had a whole new powertrain that included a harness, fortunately under warranty. If the dealer can't sort you out, then I'm sure that they'll get onto the commercial team at Gaydon, and there's a load of engineers troubleshooting behind the scenes. They'll be able to sort you out. So hopefully, if the dealership couldn't do it, then Gaydon themselves will sort it out. Where are we up to next?
The last one.
The last one. Cave on. How drastic is it to update the pre-2012 V8 Vantage S to the post-2012 faster steering rack? Okay, so the V8S had a slightly quicker ratio steering rack. It's noticeable. It's slightly less, a full amount of turns, can't remember exactly what it is. From lock to lock, but you do notice it on tip in, and you certainly don't have to drop the lower subframe, which I think in the manual it tells you to do, but you can sort of take the track rod ends off and then slide out the steering rack and do it all in situ without dismantling too much stuff. So that is pretty easy. Costs a packet though, that steering rack to buy. I think the last time we bought one, it was something like 2,700 quid plus VAT. You have to really gauge whether it's worth that amount of money. Obviously, if you bought it from the second-hand market, that's a bit different. Is that all the comments? That's it. Right, so that's all the comments there. Just if you're still hanging on from when we started, I said that there were a couple of juicy ones. Right, here we go. Zinco V12V, whoever you are. If I've had a terminal failure of my V12 engine and I'm told it cannot be rebuilt, I've seen on forums there is a Porsche engine shop machining new liners into the V12. Is this repair option advisable? Okay, so if you've seen any pictures of a V12 engine that has had its liners machined out, then I'm aware of that activity. Actually, I supplied a donor block for those people to go and research it on. So this builds into a slightly bigger subject. The 450 horsepower DB9 has got the dreaded tick issue. Now, it's not to say that it's going to do it on every single engine, but it can happen. And I've done many videos on this where the small M bush has worn. On the 470 engines, the small M bush was updated with an oil channel inside it, and no 470 horsepower 510 V12 engine I've ever seen has the dreaded tick. So this is just the 450 horsepower cars. Now, it's not going to happen on every single one. There's no rhyme and reason to it. There's no mileage. I've seen some incredibly high mileage, 100,000 plus cars not have the problem. I've seen cars with 20,000 mile on have the problem. No pattern, no rhyme or reason at all. So the small M bush wears, and on one of my videos you can see me drop the piston pin through the small M bush, and it clunks on the table. Now, that piston pin in the small M bush should be an interference fit at room temperature. So for it to drop through the com rod and the piston, that's a complete error state. That is your DB9 tick. Now, I think that as the piston is moving up and down in the liner, that tick is wear because clearances have increased, and that causes the piston to go out of control a little bit and scrape the liner on the thrust and the anti-thrust side, causing the liner to wear a bit oval, and that's where you can get a little bit of piston slap. Now, when you machine the engine, the liner, cylindrical to get rid of that ovality and you hone it, you can often find yourself going above a factory grade 3 piston. Then there is no way to repair that block a factory way, because you buy the biggest piston, a grade 3 piston, and it's too small for the now bigger liner because the liner had to be machined out to get rid of that ovality. So in those cases, you have to park the block and look for an alternative, a second-hand one. Or you put aftermarket pistons in. Now, I'm not a fan of rebuilding these engines and not using factory parts. If you build with 100% factory parts, following the factory build process, then it is done totally to a production sort of standard. If you start introducing aftermarket parts, even if they're really good ones, ultimately, who is anyone to say that those parts are okay? You've deviated from a factory process. That's wrong. But the block is no good when it goes on too big a liner. And it's a real shame to throw it away. Aftermarket engineering should be sourcing, providing an alternative to keep those engines on the road. Now, on this one solution that I've seen, machines out the liner and machines the parent bore that the liner is sat in, and changes the liner from a dry liner construction to a wet liner construction, which is really dodgy. There's lots of thermal expansion, wear rates. You're probably going to have to go for a multi-layer cylinder head gasket, more multi-layer than the one that's in there, probably a 5-layer one, something like that. And who's done the engineering work to prove all of that? The team of people that are doing it say, well, I'll put it in the car and it's done 1,200 miles. But yeah, if you look at the suite of durability tests that the factory had to go through to prove reliability and durability, it was more than one engine, did more than 1,200 miles. I wouldn't fundamentally be changing my engine from a dry liner to a wet liner in this question, even if it was done by, I think Hartel is, I'm not a Porsche man, I don't know. Now, they might be absolutely super duper machine shop, do some really trick stuff. This might look really trick, but is it durability tested? And if you buy that option off them and say, right, who's liable for this if it goes wrong? It probably won't be them saying, yeah, we'll cover any liability. You've got an awful lot of work and fluids and consumables to take the engine out and put it back in. If they're doing that work, let's just say they sell another garage the block which they build, and something fundamentally goes wrong, who is liable? I just wouldn't really be touching that solution at all, because it deviates so much from factory spec that I don't think its reliability or durability will ever be good. If it was machining the liner a bit bigger and put in a real funky aftermarket piston in, then that's fine. But changing the engine from a dry liner to a wet liner outside of production, proving it, design development, research and development, proving it, it's not something I would be getting involved with. Can't remember what this question was. I said it was Fruity Razor 8QD. Now there are more of the second century plan cars out, coming out of warranty. Will you reconsider getting a MDS2 so you can look after them? If you've got AMDS, as I said earlier, it's not that clever. it's good at highlighting the sort of where the problem might be and sending you down a path to do further tests to uncover what root cause is. In terms of electronic tools that I've got, it's not the only one. We've got canalizer and other tools that better look at communication signals across the car, ability to reconfigure software in body modules and engine modules and stuff like that. So to fix a car, to get problem cars out of trouble, AMDS is not the only tool. Now, I think a few other garages have purchased the kit. Chilton, I think, Aston Workshop, probably Nicholas Me, and good luck to them. They'll be able to reset fault codes on cars that they sell, maybe, or do some simple stuff. But for the cars that we work on, V8, DB9, obviously DB7 Vanquish, I'd say most garages out there, use the analogy, they're like a GP surgery. They treat snivelling noses and refer people to someone else. Bamford Rose, we're like a pop-up military field hospital because we're repairing carnage. The ultimate independent is something I said that we were. The ultimate was the literal sense of the word. We're the last garage because we will be fixing carnage from those other GP surgeries that normally only treat snivelling noses. They send them our way. So I can't think of having a second century plan car, DB11, DBS, a DBX, and only having AMDS as the tool to get myself out of trouble with. It's not going to fix everything. This is why the factory have a commercial department where people are sat with big manuals troubleshooting what symptoms a particular car has got. You know, a dealer can't fix a car, they're going to ring the factory up. That's why they have this department, because even dealers can't fix cars with the tools that they've got. Now, in the world of aftermarket, when the cars are 10 or 15 years old, those problems are going to be completely different because the factory don't even know what those problems are. It's only the independent network that sees the problems as the cars age. And as I say, just having AMDS2 in this case, is not good enough to be able to say that you're there and can fix everything, which is what we try and do on the Gen 1 Gaydon car. Also, as I said earlier, you've got about 15,000 Astons out there. You've got 30 shops in total, much like, for instance, Chilton Aston are the sort of the recognized name in DB7. Then, you know, we are the recognized name in Vanquish and everything leading up to second century. And I think that's good enough for us to just specialize in without having to look at the newer cars. It is quite upsetting for an existing customer that's working their way up the Aston ladder and they want to go into a second century plan car. They get on really well with us and then they say, oh, I'm going to get a DB11 or whatever. I'm going to bring that to you next year. Oh, unfortunately, no, we're not doing that. Yeah, it's a problem, but it's not just the unavailability of AMDS2. It's having a much sort of broader tool set to get yourself out of trouble with, which we've developed over the last sort of decade. And as the cars get more complex, it's going to be even more complex to develop that tool set for the second century plan cars. Also, I mean, it's quite an interesting discussion for people in a garage sort of not in the garage world. And I've said this on another video, the fluids, fixings, parts, everything the second century plan cars need are totally different. So you're going to have to double your fluids and lubes and parts store. You have to be really careful that you don't mix fluids and lubes across the cars. And much like you won't get a shop like ours that look after modern Astons. We don't look after the older Astons because we don't bash off wheel spinners and tune up carburetors. There is a divide between the Gen 1 car and the Gen 2 car in terms of technician. You're going to have someone experienced through time to work on the older cars, and working on the newer cars is a completely different skill set. So it's not just AMDS, it's a completely different workshop, a completely different staff, resourcing. It's also going to be very interesting when electric cars start to come online. Now, I know because I've worked for Jaguar on an electric car project in R&D. You couldn't even step foot in the workshop until you've been on your electric course. So what's going to happen in these brand new dealerships when electric cars start to come in? Because the staff, just to walk through a workshop, are going to have to be fully conversant with electric. So I don't even think you're going to mix electric and petrol, really. That will be quite interesting. Right, I think we're getting close to finishing. Don't know what time it is. What time are we? Blimey, we have gone well over an hour. I've been rattling on for far too long. But 60 of you are still with us, and we were 80 to start with, so that's quite a result. We'll do all this again on a future live stream. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope that for some of the questions I've answered, I've been some help. We'll look at all the comments that have been made if we've missed any, and we'll catch up on those in a future video. So if you've written something and I've not addressed it, I apologize, but we will get to it. Mateus, hi there. Yeah, your car is waiting for you, all nicely evolved. Thanks, Phil. Duncan, Gareth, good to hear from you, Gareth. Mike Burrows, hello, New Zealand. Do you know Gareth? James Rayner, hello, Mike. I was wondering if it is possible to change the auto gearbox in the DB9 to manual. Yeah, it is. You could get the manual 6-speed Graziano box. You pick that up from a V8 because they're the same pretty much. Very easy to reconfigure the electronics on that D9 and convert that to manual. I get asked this lots on the Bosch engine management system cars, and it's pretty much impossible, I think, to reconfigure that Bosch system from manual to Sportshift or Sportshift to manual. But to do it on that earlier DB9, most certainly. One true Brit. Good info, Mike. Read the technicians. My dealer says I'll have to find an independent as they have no techs to look after the older cars. Yeah, well, that's what the independent network is there for. I think it's natural progression. There comes a time when the cars will naturally come out of the franchise network, and that's no slight on the dealer. They are concentrated on selling new cars, doing pre-delivery inspections, doing warranty work, and lifting the brand up, selling new cars. Have we got one question? No, just getting told something. No, that's it. Hookmaster, thank you for the interesting live feed. Thank you for staying tuned. Give a like to this live stream. I guess you will subscribe to Bamford Rose, but whether it is on one of our question of the week or forum chat videos, or it's on our next live stream, then it'd be good if you could tune in. I'm glad you've all enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. So yeah, we'll definitely repeat this. Okay, bye everyone.